Welcome to Wake Up Aligned, the podcast for chiropractors, where we talk about chiropractic, the business of chiropractic lifestyle, and other topics of interest. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shannon McMurtry, here with Tom Owen. Tom, we were talking just a moment ago about what we want for this podcast. Why did we get together and decide we were going to invest another chunk of time into pouring ourselves out for other people? Because I know how you are. You're busy. You don't have extra time just to be throwing around. I don't have extra time to be throwing around. But we had a discussion a few weeks ago about this, and we thought there would be value here. Before this podcast began, we were talking about why we're doing this. What do we hope to accomplish? Why is it important? I'd like to talk more about that. I'd like to talk about why we're gathering together and having this conversation and what we want the people who are listening to this conversation to do with it, how we want them to be inspired and motivated and empowered.
Well, ultimately, Shannon, it's all about the service that we render, right? We're recording this today, as we embark on another boot camp weekend training. And as I was coming up here, I had my son along with me, and I knew we were coming up here to record this episode, among other things, obviously in a weekend. But you probably don't know this, but I took my son Drew, and we went through South Georgia. And if anybody knows the stories of South Georgia and where my dad came from, I took Drew through his heritage. He had never gone through all those little small towns and visited family members of the past, if you know what I mean. We went by the cemeteries at 200 years old and things of that nature. And, just seeing where his roots came from and the tenacity of those people and what they overcame. And then really where the birth of AMC came from. Birth of AMC came from Dr. Owen because he escaped Mystic, Georgia. Mystic, Georgia was a place where someone always got on the train, but nobody ever got off the train. And, this people didn't escape that kind of lifestyle. Was
Drew grateful he wasn't born in South Georgia?
He was. Yes, he is thankful for palm trees. But it was a great journey for a father-son. And what does this have to do with this podcast is that as we were talking and we were seeing that, I'm like, he recognized, number one, the strength of what's in us, of what we can overcome, not just he and I, but everyone that lives and abides by these principles that AMC was founded on. But it was also a lesson of finality, and the finality of there we were visiting all these people, and we were talking about the joys and the pains and the experiences and the laughter and the tears that were all represented in a bunch of headstones, right?
Right.
But the finality of they're not there, right? I can go visit my great grandmother, and I can go think I'm visiting my Aunt Joyce and Uncle Pete and these people, but they're not there. The finality of life is we have to live in today. And that's what my lesson to my son yesterday was Drew, we have to make the best of today. We have to invest in people, because when it's all said and done, it doesn't matter how much we succeed, doesn't matter how much we accumulate. People think that success and prosperity is found in the wealth of the things and the material things. Those are the side effects of a life well served. And that, to me, is the reason why we're embarking on another adventure together, right? Because you're right. There's a lot going on inside of our AMC family, right? We know things that we're going to be announcing over the coming months that are going to be transformational. But what is that? What's the purpose of it? Why are we making those changes? Why are we making those additions? Why are we doing this today? Because we're going to invest in the people that we can serve, so everyone that's listening today can hear me and understand that we have today We have today to serve others, because in the end, all that's left are the lives we've touched and to what extent they were changed. So that's my purpose for sitting here this morning, is to embark on a journey where I get to, whether I get to see you, whether I get to talk to you personally on the phone. I mean, I work with a lot of doctors, and over the years, the thousands that I've stood in front of and talked to, in a classroom, I see that this podcast is a way that you and I can invest and connect with our family, our AMC members, each and every week, and invest in their life so that they can turn around. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's not even about the listener of this podcast. Ultimately, what it's about are the millions of those we serve. And if we have our mind right and our heart right with that center of service, then there is no telling what will take place, what will manifest in the years to come, all from taking time to invest in our members.
Hey, there's a train in the background. Maybe a metaphor for Tom's example there about leaving Mystic, Georgia, but never coming back. That purpose, the reason we're doing this, I hope that the listener is inspired by that. Because I know the people that I work with one-on-one are busy. They're busy just like you and I are busy. You never find people who have too much money and too much time on their hands. Everybody's got their days filled up with some things, right? An abundance of things. But are they being productive? Are they living their purpose? Your purpose is helping people. Your purpose is investing in people. So no matter how much you have going on with your business, with your company, no matter how much you got going on in your personal life and your other businesses that you're involved with, when there's an opportunity to build into people, you take advantage of that opportunity. I hope the chiropractors hear that message, because they're in the people business. And if there's an opportunity for them to whittle back some of the commitments and obligations they've gotten themselves into so that they can invest into their community, into their town by helping people, that's a worthwhile effort. But it's challenging. I don't know if they don't like to do that or if they're afraid to do that. But I find that with the work that I'm doing one-on-one, there's always a distraction right around the corner. How do we help them with that? How do you decide if I'm going to commit to this podcast, if I'm going to commit to this extra effort and go a third or fourth mile for these people? How do you decide what you get off of your to-do list? How do you decide what isn't part of the obligations that you're committed to now?
That's a loaded question.
Okay.
Meaning, I don't think we could fit that into one episode, because there's different factors of how you operate in life, right? You have to live like a leader if you're going to be a leader. And there's principles there of how you manage your time, right? How mentally you approach each and every day, your daily routine, those affirmations. And then I can just go straight down to, running whether it's outside the practice, your life, or inside the practice, there's factors that are alive and well. And if you don't operate within them, then you're going to be punished by them. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you a story of somebody I talked to this week here in just a second. But first of all, those 4 factors that I know that I can always go back to, right? I can always go back to figuring out efficiency, proficiency, productivity, profitability. Now, my investment in this venture is not about profit that I can put in the bank. My profit in this is, does my investment into the listener today create a profit in their life, mm-hmm. right? But almost everything can come back to how efficiently are you operating, right? Efficiency, proficiency, productivity, profitability. It also ties in, that's why I said it's a loaded question, because we could also get into attitude, action, concepts, procedures. Those are 4 other critical pieces to building a successful life and a successful business. True? I mean, as a coach, sure. You can always go back and identify what's the attitude that we're bringing to that? What's our action plan that we're bringing to it? What's our concepts of busyness? Concepts of anything, but in this aspect, I'm too busy or I can't squeeze anything else into my schedule. Well, maybe you can't because your concepts don't understand how to do it. That's what a concept is. People don't ever always understand. What's a concept? Concept is understanding how to go operate. And then it's the procedure of doing it. So I was thinking very quickly, I'll tell you, I was sitting with a young man this week. I think it was Tuesday at lunch. Young doctor, young AMC member. And he's just 2 weeks away from opening his new practice. And he was sitting down with me, having lunch with me one-on-one. And he had the audacity to come to that meeting and had just talked to his coach, his mentor, a half hour earlier, and had said the exact same thing to them. But his mentality was, I'm stressed out. I'm raising the white flag. I don't know if I can take any more.
And he was how many days before opening?
2 weeks.
2 weeks before opening.
He's 2 weeks from opening, and he's not coming to the boot camp this weekend because I'm stressed. I can't sleep.
Ouch.
Right?
Ouch.
So what did we have to do? By the time we were done with that lunch, we changed his outlook. We changed his attitude, and we changed the way he structured his day. Right? But in reality, he had fear dominating. What was the fear? The same fear every listener here deals with. What is somebody going to think?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I going to let down?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we flipped it, and I was like, man, in this guy's case, I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, you're the luckiest guy that will be at boot camp this weekend, because you're walking in his situation, he's walking into a location that has a history of success, almost no capital expenditure to get open.
Wow.
Right? And here's another one. He happens to have his mentor, his coach, who happens to be Dr. Brubaker, that lives about 5 miles from his office location. Okay. And it happens to be not too far from the AMC home office. Right? So we just walked through. Are you kidding me? I said, if everything goes belly up, will you lose everything? No. Why? Because you don't have that much at risk. So where's the pressure coming from? All right. We just walked through where could that pressure be coming from? That has to be an inward perception, because the reality is, like we always say, he's well supported, he's well trained, he's well capable, right? What are the odds that if he's opening up in the right market, in the right location, equipping it, staffing it, and he's got the support, what are the real risks at stake? All he's got to do is apply an attitude and an action.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'll go back to what your question was is, how do you squeeze it in? Well, you go back and you respond, and you figure out, how do I become more efficient? Because that's what it is. A lack of efficiency is going to create a stress point. And I'll say one last thing, and I'll hand the mic back over to you here, Shannon, is I want everyone listening to understand that the next level, so when you come on and you want to double your practice, everyone has this idea in their head that if I could ever get from 15,000, we'll use collection numbers, that's what everyone likes to focus on. If I could ever get from 15,000 to 30,000, life would be gravy. And the reality is, folks, there's new stresses and new challenges. I don't have problems, right? I might have a lot of challenges, but there's new stresses and new challenges waiting for you at 30,000. And guess what? When you meet somebody like a Jared Whalen, right? Doing $120,000, $150,000 a month, everybody thinks he's made it. Guess what? There's plenty of things that could stress him out, and there's certainly a lot of challenges waiting for him there. And people are like, well, wait a minute, he's arrived. He's already hit that. It doesn't matter. And take it to my level. When you get to my level, and all the things that I'm dealing with, right? Behind the scenes, Shannon, that
Right.
inside of AMC, I'm operating, there's a lot of things going on inside of AMC nobody can see. But guess what? If I don't operate with those simple principles of go back and figure out how can I become more efficient? And if you don't know how, then ask. Become more proficient, that's the quality of your work, and then become more productive. Ultimately, you'll be more profitable in business, but you'll also be more profitable in your walk of life.
When we put this together and sketched this out, we were talking about we'd love to have a legacy moment. So many people now didn't have the relationship with your father that I was blessed to have. And they hear his name, they maybe see his picture on some literature or something, but they don't know the man. You were talking about attitude, action, concept, and procedure. That's our legacy moment for this week. And it just came to me. He said that if your business isn't performing the way it should, if you're not reaching that potential, you're going to find the problem in one or more of attitude, action, concept, or procedure.
Correct.
Now, you and I both know the most important of the four is attitude, but everybody wants protocol. Give me the protocol. Give me the script. Give me what I'm supposed to say. That's the least important of the four, right? But I spend my whole week working on those four elements, and I've never found his maxim of the problem will be in one or more of those four. I've never found that to be untrue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just throw out, of those four, which two does the listener have to bring? Listener has to bring the attitude and the action.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that for them.
Right.
It's up to us, you and I, through this podcast, through, our teachings and our AMC, to provide them the changes in the concepts and the procedures. But here's what's interesting. You're right. Everybody thinks I need more new patients.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's a whole nother episode someday. I need more new patients, and I need procedures. When in reality, you need an attitude adjustment. Mm-hmm. And you certainly, if I would say outside of attitude, which one, you can have the greatest of attitudes and not have any action, not be willing to work. You're not going to get very far. You're going to be a thinker.
Right.
What did thought do?
Nothing.
He just thought he did. Right. So attitude and action go hand in hand. But I will say what I work the most on in all of my mentoring, I will say that concepts are the things that hold back most of the chiropractors that I meet. People in general, actually, because the concepts of the world, what they teach in school, the cookie cutter lifestyle, the mentality of get an education, get a degree, and just that kind of cookie cutter, don't be different concept of thinking never generates greatness, right? You have to get outside the box of thinking to create greatness and excel in that leadership role. You're not going to do that inside a box. And so concepts is expanding your concepts of what's possible, concepts of wealth, concepts of money. So many people have that poverty mentality. There's not enough to go around. I'm just a lowly chiropractor. I don't measure up against the other disciplines. You know what I'm talking about when I say concepts control everything. If you have a poor concept of value, you have a poor concept of your identity, you have a poor concept of beliefs of what's possible, you're not going to ever, talking about legacy moment, I'll wrap it up here with this. Dr. Owen says, you will never, not Dr. Owen, life shows this, principles shows, you cannot. Tom Owen can't do it. Dr. McMurtry can't do it. No listener listening here can prove me wrong. You will never outgrow a concept. If you don't understand how to operate at that other level, don't worry. You're never going to reach that other level of thinking. You have to change your concept And by doing so, you'll change your result.
We need to make a note of that, 'cause I think that's a topic that we're going to have to come back to and unpack, because people don't understand concepts. They don't realize that these concepts are often like in their programming subconscious, and they're in the way, and they don't know how to identify them. They don't know how to improve them. They don't know how to expand them. Right. But I love that. That truth that once your concepts are expanded, they never go back, right? You're never going to outgrow it, first of all. But once it is expanded, then it never goes back. And we see this, well, it's this time of year. PADs, Patient Appreciation Days, are coming up. One of the most powerful elements of PAD is stacking all of those patients into a super day where you're normally seeing, 50, 60 people a day. But on PAD, for your established patients, now you're going to see 130, 145. And the night before, you're biting your fingernails, you're all nervous. How am I going to do that? I can barely keep up at 60. And what do we hear time and time again after that established patient day? Oh, that was easy. I had time to go to the bathroom and I was twiddling my thumbs. I was actually kind of bored for a few moments there in my day. See, that's a concept expander. And once that doctor crosses over that threshold, they never go back. Now, they may not be doing 145 patient visits a day from that point on, but their brain never tells them that that's an impossibility. Right? That's an important thing. I wanted to say one more thing about efficiency, because this is what I notice in my mentoring on a weekly basis. When someone is at a point of stress, when they're at a point where their cup is overflowing and they feel like, I can't do anymore, I find it so funny that when we pull the stress out, when we make things efficient, when we make it a smooth running operation, and they know what to expect day by day, week by week, hour by hour, right? There's no fires to put out. What happens to the practice? It always goes up. It always goes up in volume. It always goes up in production. It always goes up in referrals. But the doctor in that journey on the front side of that was like, there's no way I can see more people, right? Dr. Lisa, good friend of ours, a mentor in AMC, a wonderful, a talented instructor. This was her journey about 4 or 5 years ago. I remember I had a conversation with her on setting goals, and she was actually almost apologetic. I don't want to set goals. I'm doing everything that I have dreamed about doing. It's better than I'd ever dreamed of. And, I want to have more time away, more flexibility. I want to travel. I'm like, great. The purpose of the goal is not for your practice to keep breaking records. The purpose of a goal is to keep you green and growing, because you're either green and growing or ripe and rotting. So you set your goals on your lifestyle and getting some time away and blah, 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 blah. So she did that. Well, to get her to have that type of control of her practice so she could take time away. And by the way, they took a 2-week bucket list trip to Alaska this past year. To do that, we had to work on the internal day-to-day operations of that practice. We had to work on everything from front desk to scheduling people out, to how we were managing the patients. The purpose of me sharing that with you is this. Once we started to work on those internal stress points, which were an effort to give her that freedom and flexibility to take trips away and take time off from the clinic, what happened to the clinic numbers? They went up. They didn't just go up a little bit. They went up on average about 20 to 30% over the level she was already doing, which, by the way, was the level that she said, I can't do anymore, right? That's efficiency. That's what you were talking about a moment ago. And I see that time and time and time again. It's not a one-off. It is the way it works. You were making some notes there. I think you want to say something.
I'm not so sure we have time on this episode. Maybe on the next show we'll revisit this, because this is where a lot of it's at, right? I mean, you want exact change. You work on, if we did nothing but a year's worth of podcast on efficiency and concepts, we would be exacting a lot of change in a lot of people's lives. Yeah, my notes were essentially back to concepts. Somebody goes, well, how do you change your concepts? What's something that you could take from this recording or this session and start changing your concepts? Well, I've worked with some extremely challenging situations. So first and foremost, listeners, you're not on an island. And the odds are your situation is not as bad as you are making it out to be. All right. It's because I've worked with some just horrific situations, not just horrific from a business standpoint, but just horrific from their background or what they had experienced in life as a child, abuses, things that had created their internal identity, right? Really some
severe stuff,
some severe scars, some severe limited beliefs, severe limited self-value, things of that nature. Well, how do you go about changing that, right? You can't change 40 years worth of, I guess, a branding, 40 years of just intake, and then all of a sudden come to one weekend seminar and everything. And I bought a script this weekend and all my problems. No, doesn't matter what script or application you're trying to apply in the practice. You're still carrying all that baggage. And everybody listening knows what I'm talking about. You all are carrying baggage. I carry baggage. I have to choose to put that baggage down every day and reset myself, right? We're all challenged. The devil is always out there working, right? And his idea is if I can change your identity, your values, and your concepts, if I can keep those boxed in, I got you for life, right? Well, here's something that everybody can do. Even in the deepest, darkest situations that I've dealt and mentored people out of, how do you start it? Write down on one side of a piece of paper, just start writing down, I'm not worthy. Write down those limited beliefs that you don't want to tell anybody else. I'm not beautiful. I'm not good enough. I'm just a chiropractor. Money is evil. I don't know. Whatever it is, just make this long list. How do you change it? Once you do that, now that's going to take a while. Don't try to do that in 5 minutes. But once you do it, once you make that list, now just go on the other side of the piece of paper and write down the exact opposite. So you don't, when I'm headed towards affirmations, what are you affirming to yourself? On an episode recently, we talked about the truth in the mirror, right? What are you saying to that mirror? Because that mirror is a friend most true, right? It is but yourself that you see there. Well, what are you saying to it? And if you just take all the negative, write the exact opposite and start speaking into your mirror the exact opposite. I am beautiful. I am valuable. I am well capable. I am well trained. Money doesn't necessarily breed happiness, but it makes misery more tolerable, right? One of my favorite old quotes. But just get in the habit of doing that every day, and you will start, it'll take drip by drip. The first 30 days, the person that's walked for 40 years and been told opposite, they're going to think that's nuts.
And they're going to think that they're the biggest fraud in the world by saying those things and trying to believe those things.
But then all of a sudden, about 90 days later, they start thinking, well, maybe
I can.
Maybe. And then a year later, they can't be convinced. You could reprogram 40 years of damage with 1 year of positive affirmation. Last but not least, and then I'll finish up, is what's another thing that they can do to change those concepts. Inside the AMC family, we got things called certified training centers. Get your tail out of your box, out of that circle, out of that bubble, get out of your world and go see it in action. There's something that says, I'd rather see a sermon in action than to hear one any day. So folks, listen to me. Simple tool of affirmation you can do every day. Doesn't cost a dime. That's the beauty of what I just shared with. The affirmations don't cost anything. Just cost some time and some self-reflection. The certified training centers, It's an investment. It's not an expense. Go see the sermon in action, and that will change the concepts.
Yeah, we're running up against the clock, but I think we have to circle back in future episodes on these topics. And I'm living proof of what you just shared there on that affirmations and making that list, because I used to believe I'm not beautiful, and look at me now.
Yes. Look at you now, Dr. Shannon.
Everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Wake Up Aligned. We look forward to serving you in the future and joining us in future episodes. And one more thing before we go. If you're a chiropractor who's searching for a better way to build a more sustainable, low-stress practice, then you can contact us at amcfamily.com. You can schedule a discovery session, or you can access any of our free content, webinars, podcasts, and the like.